Well, 10 2020 candidates will take the stage in Houston tonight for the third Democratic presidential debate. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren will be center stage at Texas Southern University thanks to their high poll numbers in recent weeks. Our own Caitlin Huey-Burns reports that 2 Texas natives will also be competing as Democrats look to win the state for the very first time in decades.
The Democratic presidential primary has candidates crisscrossing Iowa, New Hampshire, and Texas.
We can and will defeat Donald Trump here in Texas.
The Lone Star State, which hosts its primary on Super Tuesday, holds the second largest number of delegates to the national convention. Party strategists say that whoever does well in Texas can become the real frontrunner.
What's up, Tarrant County?
The state is becoming increasingly diverse, making it a crucial campaign stop for Democrats.
One of the things that we have that is so special is the strength of women and the strength of women of color, the strength of African American women.
That's why candidates have been focusing on areas like Houston, where a quarter of the population is African American and roughly 45% is Hispanic. Harris County, which encompasses Houston, doubled its voter turnout in 2018.
We've got a population over 5 million people, more people here than in the state of Colorado.
Voters elected 19 black women judges, along with the first Latina county executive.
Just a rich culture and the diversity that reflects the future of our country. Right here, we're ground zero for change.
The state is also home to 2 presidential contenders.
At every level of the ballot, from school board, judicial positions to U.S. Senate, Texas is in play, and that is owing to women of color, their leadership.
Who argue that their state can become a true battleground for the general election in 2020.
What does a candidate have to do to win Texas in the primary?
Being Julian Castro would help. I can both excite the base of the Texas Democratic Party and also draw in a lot of the suburban voters who in 2018 clearly broke toward the Democratic Party.
Democrats point to President Trump's dwindling approval ratings in the state.
I would certainly say don't count us out, certainly for a vigorous primary, but don't count us out for the general election. We are poised to be blue or purple.
But Republicans say it all depends on who Democrats pick as their nominee.
Do you think Texas is a battleground state now?
They're certainly trying to make it a battleground state. I would have worried about, I would say, the older Democratic Party before now. The new Democratic Party I'm not as worried about.
And joining me now, Caitlin Huey-Burns, Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright. Caitlin is a CBSN political reporter currently in Houston for tonight's debate. Leslie, a CBS News contributor and Republican strategist, and Antjuan, also a CBSN political contributor and a senior advisor to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Okay, I want to start with the Texas native through and through, Leslie Sanchez.
I got my cowboy hat, but I'm ready to go.
Cowboy hat and boots, welcome anytime on our side. Leslie, should the Republican Party be concerned when you talk about 2020?
Well, the Republican Party definitely has its work cut out for it. I don't think anybody can think that the establishment-based Republican Party looks anything like the new Trump Republican Party. And there's a lot of kind of conflict of identity. The truth is, we're still fundamentally aligned on those values, lower taxation, personal responsibility, keeping the military strong, and a lot of those are the bedrock of states like Texas, which have, traditionally been Republican, at least winning for the last several decades. So the change is coming in terms of demography, and Republicans are challenged by the types of candidates they move forward. But that's not something we're going to see right away in 2020. 2020 is going to be all about Donald Trump.
Caitlin, I want to turn to you. You're there at the debate site right now. Give us a sense of what you think we might expect tonight, and what are you hearing from the candidates?
Well, we've had a couple of debates so far, but tonight is the first night that we will see Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden on the same stage together in this primary contest. So you have the frontrunner in Joe Biden and the rising star in Elizabeth Warren, according to our CBS News Battleground Tracker poll. And I think that's really interesting to pay attention to, because these 2 campaigns really illustrate the broader debate that the party is having in this primary. Our CBS News Battleground Tracker poll found that 60% of voters wanted the Democratic message to be more progressive than that of the Obama administration. We see that in Elizabeth Warren's campaign. 40% wanted the Democrats' messaging to be about returning to the time before Donald Trump, which is very much what Joe Biden has been talking about. So you have two campaigns offering kind of competing visions for what they want the party to be. Joe Biden talking a lot about the Obama legacy and the battle for the soul of the nation, as he calls it. Elizabeth Warren, on the other hand, arguing for big structural change. Her campaign slogan is "Dream big, fight hard." The two have a relationship that spans several years. They have been adversaries at points, fighting over a banking bill several years ago when Elizabeth Warren was a Harvard law professor and Joe Biden was a senator. When Joe Biden got into this race, Elizabeth Warren kind of noted that feud, and she has talked about ways in which she is raising grassroots support money, and Joe Biden has been talking with donors. We can also maybe expect Joe Biden to go after some of her past as well. So look for those two on the debate stage tonight. They're certainly at center stage and unlike anything we've seen in this primary so far.
You know, Antjuan, Caitlin talks a little bit about Elizabeth Warren rising and the movement for progressives, but you talk about other folks in the Democratic Party who want to hail back to sort of the Obama era, not so far to the left. What is that war within the Democratic Party right now? Who's going to win that?
Well, let's be clear. African Americans still will have their say-so who the next nominee will be and who the next president of the United States will be. I think Elizabeth Warren is enjoying some love and affection from certain corners of the party, but keep in mind that does not translate to the love and affection for the most loyal voting bloc in the party. And I think when you step outside the DC bubble, when you step outside of Twitter and even some of the news media, that's where the rubber meets the road. And when you look at South Carolina, where I'm from, where the majority of the vote will be African American in the primary, you look at many of the states to follow, including Texas, believe it or not, there's a strong African American population who have not wrapped their arms around or embraced the idea of Elizabeth Warren, just as it was in 2016 with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders picked up a lot of steam. He was moving forward. However, there was...
What is it with those two candidates? Just too far to the left?
I think it's that. African Americans traditionally have been more conservative in their democratic principles and values, but also I think it's about relationships and foundations and a body of work that people can point to and lean on heavily. And when you look at Joe Biden, his body of work speaks for him when it comes to African American voters, particularly in the South, and you cannot press the ignore or the chill button on that.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree, especially when you talk about underserved communities. They want to see a record of success, a pattern. That can work for you and against you. I would say the challenge Joe Biden has is many will see this as a third term of the Obama presidency. How you feel about it one way or the other. And a lot of times this country rejects that kind of premise. If you look at George H.W. Bush, it was the same thing. It's really difficult to get that third term because they see it that way. But on the positive side, that is the thing, not just African Americans, I think religious-based voters. You're also looking, in some cases, women voters, certainly Latino and Asian voters. They want to see a body of work that shows you are reflective. Bernie Sanders ran into that problem on civil rights last go around.
And to follow up on one point, so there's some subsequent things to keep in mind. One, older voters who are reliable voters, they tend to lean more towards the Joe Biden type candidacy because of his body of work. And you should also remember, you have Elizabeth Warren and even Bernie Sanders to a certain degree, and Kamala Harris failed in this block at the last debate, where they seem to be bashing the historic 44th president of the United States. That's a big no-no when it comes to African-American voters, because there are still people who get chills in their body about a black man being the leader of the free world. And I think that has benefited. But Joe Biden has benefited tremendously from that, and the political article today, I think, solidifies his front-runner status because you have the Warren crowd going after Barack Obama. I
want to get Caitlin to weigh in as well. Caitlin, you actually spoke to press secretary for the Trump 2020 campaign, Kayleigh McEnany, and what exactly did she say that the president might be looking for, watching for in tonight's debate?
Campaign, what we'll be looking for is yet more socialism. That's what we've been saying since the beginning, that there is no centrist lane. And tonight that'll be on full display because for the first time you'll have Joe Biden squeezed between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And optically speaking, we think that's significant of what's going to be happening ideologically as Joe Biden is pulled ever more to the left, if that's possible, after he's already said he wants to eliminate fossil fuels and have a single payer option in healthcare.
So, Caitlin, do you get a sense of what their strategy might be?
Right, they want to paint the entire Democratic Party with a broad brush and identifying all of the Democrats in their view as socialists. And so they are going to not be looking for distinctions between Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. They are going to try to argue that they are part of the same party. And you can take issue with that messaging, certainly, but it's significant because of what we've seen with the economy and the threatening downturn of the economy. That's so critical to the president's own re-election campaign. If the economy turns, they will certainly have this to kind of fall back on or to kind of promote. So we've seen the president try to focus on the economy, but also focus on cultural and social issues, and that's why he's trying to paint Democrats with one single brush.
Antjuan, I want to ask you about two candidates in particular, because we're talking about Texas, Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro. What happened there?
Well, I can tell you what, Texas is big, but not big enough for the both of them. I think both of them feel like they have a lane on the Democratic political highway. Yeah. However, I think they underestimated the strength and the body of work of Joe Biden. I also think they underestimate the fact that just because you're from Texas don't mean people love you in Texas. And I think that is starting to translate. Now, there's still a lot of ball left to be played. I think the momentum will come out of South Carolina, but if I'm them two, I would just focus on a real home-based strategy because of the delegates that will be available. I would count my losses in California because I think it's going to be what it's going to be, but I would really focus on Texas and maybe bleed over to some southern states. I think the other problem is they're both fighting for the same things with two different messages, and I think that's the big problem.
Can you guys just give me a date when we'll have one Democratic candidate and we're ready to move on?
Well, that crystal ball has yet to materialize. I would say that, but also these are candidates that cannot, in all likelihood, win their own home state, right? Which is going to be the same Al Gore kind of problem. It's also going to be somebody that Biden would probably do extremely well with when you're thinking about Texas from a Democratic perspective, because the military bases, kind of the longer, more conservative bases. Maybe. Latino helped Hillary Clinton, not necessarily Barack Obama, so it's kind of a split on that.
Well, to one point on that, the latest Univision poll that came out, it had Biden leading the camp when it comes to Latino voters. I'm really not surprised because of his body of work with Barack Obama, but still, that could change in a minute.
I don't know. There are too many people. There are just too many people. We need to narrow it down.
We said that as Republicans, it may remind you.
Rena, if I could...
Caitlin, yes, please, go ahead.
Rena, if I could add, the Biden campaign expects this to be a very long race. They say that while he's the front runner now, they expect 3 or 4 other candidates to remain in this for a long time. They're calling this the long haul and a long fight.
That says so much. Caitlin, thanks for weighing in there. Caitlin Huey-Burns, Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright, thank you all for joining us.